Some books are so potent, they can change your life with a single chapter. But while all of Atomic Habits is going to be worth reading, there is a chapter that's the heart and soul of the book. And that is, of course, the second chapter, which is all about identity formation. So why does identity matter so much to the concept of building better habits? Because if we don't understand the why we are changing our identity, the why we are changing our habits, then unfortunately, we're likely to fall short of our goals, or we'll be completely off target altogether and establish the wrong habits. And most of us have the self-awareness to realize that most goals that are worth pursuing are going to take time, patience, and effort and consistency. And that is, in essence, what habits provide for us. And for so many of us, our habits are a reflection of our life already. They're a reflection of how we already see ourselves. And we do the things that we just naturally see ourselves doing. And so if we want to achieve long-term goals, then we need to shift our long-term perspective on ourselves. And this second chapter is one of the biggest reasons why I feel like this book of Atomic Habits has played such a crucial role in the process of anybody's personal development. Is it highlights the fact that personal development truly is identity change. And that identity change takes place by adjusting the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And so if your identity is not aligned with who you're trying to become, then that can be a real hindrance to you making progress. And I know that sometimes I have fallen for the trap of, oh, I'm one thing, now let me change to this totally opposite thing, and trying to kind of brainwash myself into different beliefs. Doesn't really work. But what I have found is to tell myself a different story and to alter my beliefs that are in congruence with my actions. And so a very simple example of this is I'm a huge fan of CrossFit. I like weights, I like power, I like strength. I hate running. But CrossFit of course involves a variety of movements, including running. And so one of the things that I struggled with immensely in the early days, especially of CrossFit, is I never really saw myself as a runner. And so I never really pushed myself to be a good runner during running events or running portions of a CrossFit workout. And I was routinely getting my backside handed to me during these moments. And one of the things that I slowly shifted towards is I had done enough running to where I was like, you know what, like I am not a runner, but I'm getting better. And then that was enough of an acknowledgement for me to be able to begin to tell myself the story of, I'm actually getting a little faster. And that was true. I was beginning to start to shave a few seconds off my runs. And over time, I started to recognize the fact that, oh, actually, I'm keeping up with Becky, or I'm starting to be able to keep up with Cody, or I'm starting to be able to keep up with Bryce. Wow. And that was enough evidence for me to begin to shift the story to where I no longer saw myself as this terrible runner, but as a progressing runner. And as a result of that, I eventually started becoming more comfortable with running workouts, to the point where now I'm starting to do high rocks on a semi-regular basis. And if you know a high rocks workout, it's a lot of running. And the old me certainly would have never done that. And that simple story highlights a very simple framework that we can use to begin to alter our beliefs or our perspectives on who we are, so that way we can then grow into these new identities and take on new habits as a result of them. That simple framework is simply, number one, to understand the beliefs that we already have about ourselves, and then number two is to actually seek out new information, or at least to be open to new ideas. Then that way, as we observe ourselves doing new things and getting better or progressing in certain domains of our lives, we can begin to alter the perspective that we have and alter the story that we tell ourselves over time. Now, of course, the rest of the book is incredibly tactical, and it does help us to identify what are the habits and what are the systems and structures that help us to create the habits that are going to get us to where we want to go. And of course, there are the 4 laws that make creating the good habits so much easier, which are, of course, to make it obvious, make it attractive, then make it easy, and then make it rewarding. And if you follow those 4 tactical laws, it gets a lot easier to create those habits. But again, if we never understand the why of who we're trying to become, then it becomes very difficult to take aim at the proper thing and make the correct adjustments. And of course, changing our identity, changing our belief system also helps us with the 4 steps, because as we change the way that we perceive ourselves and the kinds of persons that we want to become, then that naturally begins to change both the cues that we accept and that we receive that can start habits, and it can also change what we determine as rewarding. And at the risk of stating the obvious, the reason that matters is because this habit that we're trying to change, this person that we're trying to become, needs to be sustainable. If it's not sustainable, if it's not something that we can enjoy, then it's going to be very difficult for us to actually pursue on a long enough time horizon to where we actually change who we are and habituate into a new person.